Hello,
Okay.
Mr. Vishal. Hi.
Hi,
Welcome
Shalini. How are
to,
you?
thank you, I'm good. So, welcome to Security Conference and 2020. So, over to you.
Thank you. The topic that I'm going to be speaking about is very wide, and at least at Seclore, I can say we've been about 8 years in this journey, and compressing it in 20 minutes is going to be tough. But I'm just the opening act, and we've got Sai Venkataraman just following me, and I'm sure the main course will be much better. Right? But in the 20 minutes that I have, let me just start out with doing a quick introduction about Seclore and my role, and then a little bit of the learnings that we have had in this last 6-7 years of growing the company. Right. So Seclore is a enterprise B2B security software company. We focus on unstructured data security, which is documents, emails, and the likes. And we have today some of the largest enterprises in the world using our technology. Among names that you might have heard of are companies like Allianz, American Express, Applied Materials, Two Rivers, Financials, MetLife, and so on. The Seclore, the very short version of the Seclore story is that Seclore was a few years ago finally a project at IIT Bombay, and we were operating from actually the company has been incubated and promoted by IIT Bombay, so we were operating from within a equivalent of a garage in the campus, and then since then we've been lucky enough that today the company is spread across the globe. We have direct on the ground, like our own people present in North America, in Europe, in Middle East, across Riyadh, Dubai, and so on, in India, and very shortly Singapore for Southeast Asia. Right? So it's a pretty globally spread out operation, and we've got customers in about 29 countries. Government agencies of I think 11 countries use our technology to protect their most confidential information. So it's a I would say pretty geographically very well spread out operation, and in our case, most of the revenue base I would say currently is in North America, which is a matter of great pride. I mean, this is finally a project at IIT Bombay, and some of the largest companies in the US are using it, and across the world are using the technology. So it's a moment of great pride for us at Seclore, and I'm sure for the broader community out there. So I think that given the topic, I'll just share with everyone over here what are at least what we found as the key ingredients for scaling security companies specifically, but in general organizations globally. And the first thing that I want to say is very topical, which is that even though COVID has been a terrible calamity to fall on all of us, for businesses looking to scale globally, this is a golden time, right? Because everybody is working from home, and therefore you could be anywhere. Right? So Sai and I are both based in California, but I think he's joining this session from California. I'm on a personal trip to India, and I'm in Jaipur, and we're running this session. And I'm sure the people here on this in the session are also spread out all over India and perhaps all over the world. Right? So as far as globally scaling organizations, there has not been a better time than now to consider and actually do it. But outside of the very here and now opportunity that has presented itself for all of us, I think in order of priority, I want to talk about 4 or 5 things which we've learned. And as they say, an expert is defined as somebody who's made enough mistakes, who's made all the mistakes there is to make in a particular field. And by that logic, we are definitely experts at scaling. The first one, and I think where we've made the most number of mistakes and therefore by extension learned the most, is the process of hiring. Right? whether you're hiring for the global organization in India or you're hiring locally for the global organization, if you're hiring in the US for the US, and so on, the amount and quality and quantity of attention that you need to pay on this one particular aspect, I don't think there is enough that can be said or stressed on this topic. Right? Hiring is perhaps make or break for any operation, and definitely for global expansion. You want to take people who typically, when we say global expansion, I'm assuming that most of us here are interested in companies which are started or run out of India and now looking to expand, outside of India. And in that context, it is very important to, number one, get people, and it doesn't matter where you hire. You could hire people in India, start focusing on the business in North America, for example, right? Or you are hiring people in North America, depends on the business model. But in all cases, you need people with a lot of empathy, right? Because if the person is in North America, then they need empathy with the team in India. If the person is in India, then they need a lot of empathy for the customers and partners that they're working with in North America, right? Just as an example. And combined with this is core craft skills. They do need to be a good product manager or a good salesperson, or good at whatever they do, and be empathetic to the teams internally or externally. And that's a very difficult combination to find, right? Good salespeople typically are, or a lot of times, are not the most empathetic of the lot, right? And similarly for other categories, let me not call out salespeople here, but finding this combination and getting a person who's ready to work for for most part, a relatively unknown company in that geography. If you're trying to hire in the US, chances are that at the time you're making your first few hires, you are a relatively unknown enterprise in North America. So all of this makes it a very, very difficult hire to do. And it doesn't matter what's the role, whether you're hiring business managers, whether you're hiring product managers, marketing people, product marketing folks, and so on. Whatever you want to hire, it is a very difficult hire, and therefore, number one, the amount of care and attention that you need to do on this one, put in on this one particular aspect, and be ready to correct your mistakes. So if you feel that the hiring has not been done right, or the person not fitting into your enterprise culture, be ready to let go quickly also, right? And both of these are difficult jobs, right? Getting the person on board, and hopefully not, but if things don't work out, letting him or her go, are both difficult jobs. And I would say this is a founder level problem. You don't want to outsource this problem to anybody else except for your respective selves as the founders of the company. The second thing, once you go beyond hiring, is, and this is a mistake that nearly every company makes at some level, which is to assume that the same product will work. And I have to set the context here. We are a security company. Security products are not typically geography specific, right? So an antivirus software or a firewall software or any of the other softwares, especially security, are not typically geography specific, right? You don't have an antivirus which works in India but doesn't work in Pakistan or whatever, right? It's usually the same. But even for security software, there are a lot of nuances, how you lay out the user interface, the user behavior of interacting with this. I'm sure Sai will share his insights of how how just any software which has a human interface, be ready to get insights and to be able to customize / extend the product capabilities to suit that particular geography, right? And this is, once you go beyond security, then this is even more drastic, right? Once you go into HRM systems, for example, or BPMs and so on, the amount and variety of changes that you will need to make as you scale the enterprise globally is even more. Security is probably the least, but it's still a lot, right? And therefore, uh, my second most important advice in the order of my priority would be ready to make or create bandwidth within the product engineering, product management organization to incorporate these changes as you get feedback from customers and prospect. Right. The third thing here is the consumer inciting process. Right. There is a particular process that you might have gone through before you set up the company, or as you've grown businesses, is the business in India, for example. Right, you have the luxury of going over, meeting people, getting their feedback. You might know people informally through your board members or through your personal contacts or from past life in your career and so on. That same luxury goes away when you are trying to do customer inciting in other geographies. Right? So if you want to be able to talk to a German bank, there's a good chance, and let's say you are the biggest thing in banking software in India. If you want to be able to speak to a German bank to see what kind of needs does the German bank have, chances are just getting in front of the right person, getting enough comfort with him or her for that person to be able to speak to you about anything is a long way away, right? And therefore, preparing yourself through advisors, through board members, through more informal channels to be able to get in front of your right future buyers to do this consumer inciting or customer inciting on an ongoing basis is very, very important. Right? They are your eyes and ears on the ground. And as you're building up the teams in each of the individual geographies, you will need to rely on more informal channels to do this customer inciting feedback, product roadmap validations, and those kind of things. And then the last of my four, and I see that I still have 6 or 7 minutes, but the last of the four learnings for us have been this whole interplay between products and engineering, and where do you have your product team, and do you need to have engineering teams locally in each of the geography? Do you need to have product management teams in each of the geographies, and so on? And I can say that you will find every kind of model, right? So you will find companies where product management and product engineering are both in India, and the company is doing very well globally. You will find companies where the engineering is in India, the product management is for example, in the US, and the company is doing well. And at the same time, you will find that there are enough examples of each of these models not working also, right? So I wish there was, but there is no silver bullet over here, and it will finally depend on the people that you get. So we've had situations where product management and product engineering are both centralized. They're sitting right next to each other, and it has not worked. And we've also had cases where the product management and engineering are 12 hours apart, and it's worked beautifully. Right. So the one nugget that I would like to leave everyone with is that I think hiring, it goes back to point number one, which is evolving this whole organization according to the people that you hire is also very important. Right? So if you do get people who can have a global outlook and who can have empathy for customers in North America, for example, setting out of Bangalore, great, right? Then you have the luxury of having your product management and engineering teams centralized and be able to service the global customer base. if you have product management in North America, for example, then they need to have enough empathy and a good working relationship with the engineering team, for example, which is in India, right? Before engineering or parts of engineering move to North America. Right? So, no silver bullet, but the organization structure in this whole product management and product engineering setup has to adjust to the people that you hire, right? And not the other way around. So the mistakes that we've made is that we've said this is the structure that we want, and now try to fit the people. And instead, the right way, at least in retrospect, we realize is that we should have just gone out and hired the best product manager out there, and then figured out and built a structure under him or her. Right. So people, and at the end of it, people become the most valuable asset, and that's the same thing that we learn over and over again. So I would say, if the in the 20 minutes that I have, yeah, and having made a lot of mistakes in this globalization of a finally a project from IIT Bombay, I would say hiring is one most important thing. You don't want to outsource that problem to anybody else. That is something that you as a founder will have to do. Right, product customization, product insighting, and then the whole management and engineering of the product, and where you need your various teams to be. Right? Once you've got past that, then I would say the next biggest challenge, and then it becomes very specific to the kind of businesses that you're running. The next biggest challenge then becomes marketing and demand generation. Right? We'll not have enough time here. I see I'm almost at the top of my 20 minutes, but marketing is a big challenge. Most of us here on the call are people who've likely grown up in India, and we are just not taught marketing in any shape or form before we become founders of companies. Most of us are underqualified in that one field. We might be good managers, we might have experience, we might be good technologists, but we are almost always not good marketers, right? And therefore, hiring for the marketing team, setting marketing processes, making sure that it is more science than art, are very difficult things which don't come naturally to us. And therefore, that's where relying on, again, board members, advisors, to get to be able to even hire the right marketing talent, for example, or set up the right marketing processes is a tough one. And I personally have spent the bulk of my time over the last 4-5 years, in which the company has grown from just being present in India to being at least locally present in 6 other countries. Now, most of my time and energy have been spent in figuring out marketing. Right? How does one go about it? How does one evolve it, and so on? And it's still squeezed from the trenches. We are still at it, figuring and correcting ourselves every day. And happy to take questions if there are any. Let me see if I think I have about a minute or so, but happy to take questions. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions before I pass the mic on to Sai. Oh, these are questions from the previous session. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. I see there are no questions which could only mean one of 2 things, right? Everybody's understood everything, or nobody has a clue, right? I will pass the stage back to Shravani yourself, and thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Vishal, for starting the topic with your journey started in IITB and leading us to more deep discussion. So thank you so much for joining us, and from your busy schedule, thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
To discuss more on the same topic with a different perspective, we have with us Mr. Sai Venkataraman, CEO and founder, Security Advisor. Can we have Mr. Sai on the stage? Yeah, he's there. So, hello, Mr. Sai, welcome.
Hi, Shravani. Good to be here.
Yeah, so stage is all yours, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shravani. Good to be here. So I am Sai Venkataraman, co-founder and CEO of Security Advisor. I am currently based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let me start by introducing myself and our company. Our company is about 3 years old. We started with a team in India. We got our first customers in India. Now we are headquartered in San Francisco. And so I'm here to share our experiences and where we've found some success internationally. I'd also like to share some slides, based on our experiences. So let me actually share my screen. So what do we do? Security Advisor is actually a company that is focused on the human side of cybersecurity. So we started off, 3 of us started this company, all 3 of us of Indian origin. We are working together in McAfee. And one of the ideas we had was one of the reasons why security incidents happen is because of human actions. In fact, it's the number one reason. And historically, to fortify people, most companies use training. We thought that we could actually integrate with different cybersecurity tools, find teachable moments in real time, and engage users in real time. And we thought we could disrupt the existing security awareness training market with this approach. And the good thing about the Indian market is that you can break in. We have a number of highly qualified CISOs who can actually engage with us and who are willing to give new companies a chance. So, before you even think about international expansion, I think it's important that India itself is a top 15 market. And so, getting a few lighthouse wins in India is important. Now, talking about international markets, I think focus is important. The United States is far and away the biggest market. 40%, this is a slightly dated slide, but 40% of total cybersecurity spending is in the US. And it's also not very protectionist. When you actually win a deal, compliance requirements are less, unlike, let's say, Europe, where there's GDPR, and procurement regulations are difficult, and hosting requirements are difficult. And so, if you have to focus internationally, the US is far and away the largest market, and it's also the most addressable market. And India, of course, is a reasonably large market, but ASPs are low and so on. So when you think internationally, US is far and away the most important and most addressable as well. So what did we do, to get success internationally? To start off, we built our platform in India. We started working with smaller enterprises in India, then went and started working with some of the top 10 large, enterprises, family-owned enterprises, financial banks, and so on. And India really helped us build our platform. In the US, when you make a few mistakes, customers often boot you out. India, they tolerate errors. And so as a startup, we always make mistakes. But where India was really helpful for us was that we had a team in India, and we also had a set of design partners in India. So what we're showing here in this slide is that we could really build our analytics platform. We could really reduce error rates. And so our company is Security Advisor, an advisor for end users. And so, we could actually build that advisor working with customers in India, and our product maturity really improved, So the first year of our business, we focused on India, we built our product, we matured it, we reduced outages, and we got it to a level of stability where we could actually start to think about international expansion. And then when you think about international expansion, it's important that you get the right investors. So we did a couple of venture rounds so far. The first one was with a fund called Cybermentor Fund, which is a cybersecurity seed fund. It's really good to work with these seed funds and cybersecurity funds, because building cybersecurity companies, is as much science as art. And so, one of the LPs in Cybermentor Fund, he's the CEO of VRM, a serial entrepreneur. He mentored us. He introduced us to his people, in sales, in marketing, and that coaching was really important. And so, as you think about international expansion, you need a few anchors. Finding the right investor is probably a key anchor. And then in the second round, we again went with a pure play cybersecurity fund called Clear Sky. And they are run by a couple of CISOs, the ex-CISO of Blackstone Group and ex-CISO of Salesforce. And they brought, financial and strategic value as well. So very important that you find the right investors. Now, tip 2 is There's no alternative to this. All three of us who started this company, even though we were based in the Bay Area, we are all of Indian origin. We had to find a local team. Our CRO came from Optiv, our chief customer experience. And there are three functions where you need a local team. Sales, marketing, and customer success. And customer success is just as important. And so we actually hired people with a ton of experience. It's expensive, but you got to do it. Unless you have a local team, especially for startups, the biggest deal is trust. Sales cycles are long. There are 3,000 cybersecurity companies. So why would a chief security officer trust you over others, especially when they don't have a relationship with you? And so to build that trust, you need a local team, you need a credible team, and you got to make that investment. Without it, it's incredibly hard. And so that is something that we did. And building a diverse and local team is actually quite critical. Then the third thing is, this is important for startups. You need to start building an ecosystem. And again, we see our journey, to winning customers, to winning larger deals. It takes time, and it's about building trust with the people who are gonna, buy your product or platform. And to establish trust, being associated with the right partners is absolutely important. So one thing we've experimented and had some success with is actually partnering with companies that are much better known than we are. And so it takes doing, but we've actually built some very nice partnerships, and these partnerships in turn help us win credibility at the end customer. And there are three types of partnerships. The first type of partnership is a technology partnership, which is fairly easy to do. The second type of partnership is a channel relationship. Again, these channel partners, they have trust with the customers where we don't. And so getting channel partners, onboarding them, launching a partner program, that is actually, has worked out quite well for us. The third is OEMs, where you're willing to co-brand your offering. And there are some hard trade-offs, whether you're willing to give up your brand, what are the economics. And so we've experimented with all three with varying degrees of success, and there's no one size fits all solution. But if you are serious, if you even want to get to the POC stage with end users, end customers, you need a few anchor partnerships. At least I very strongly believe in. But without partnerships, I can't see even a single deal which we could have won. Then the fourth is, we call them lighthouse accounts. So you need a couple of accounts, you need to write a couple of blogs with these accounts. So this early lighthouse accounts, convincing a few chief security officers. We are a cybersecurity company. And so, convincing a CISO to buy, and then building a result story. It's a lighthouse story is not just winning an account, but getting them to write a testimonial, sharing it publicly, talking about results, talking about ROI, and looking larger than you actually are. And so that's where those first customers do whatever it takes and make them happy. Make them public references and private references. Absolutely critical. And once you have, say, 4 or 5 lighthouse accounts, each of these lighthouse accounts, they'll introduce you to others. You start building buzz. You can start running demand gen campaigns. You can start running LinkedIn campaigns. You can build a team. Investors will come around. Getting those 4 or 5 reference accounts, absolutely critical. And getting measurable results and ROI stories with those accounts, again, incredibly important. Fifth is you got to paint a vision and roadmap. There's what you are today, but there's also what you can be tomorrow. And customers will help you as you roll it out. So this is what we think of. I don't want to get into the details of our vision and roadmap, but you always got to paint that. Hey, this is where we are today. This is what you're going to be tomorrow. And this has the potential to be so much more. By definition, most startups focus on a niche problem. And so painting that picture, painting that roadmap, and growing with your customers, that is something that is quite important as well. And so, the 5 lessons, as you can see, for us are, first is getting the right investors, anchor investors. The second is building the right team. Third is partnering to get the trust and to share best practices. Fourth is lighthouse accounts. And fifth is, painting that vision and roadmap and showing customers, the potential of a bright future together. So, those were the 5 tips that I came in here ready to share, and open to any questions that the audience may have. Any questions? Great. Looks like there are no questions. I can't see any questions here. So this is what I had to share. Shravani, anything else? Sure. I think I see one topic. So how do you find those anchor investors? So finding those anchor investors is an interesting process. And there is always a few different things that you can do as a startup to find those anchor investors. So the first is you have to put yourself out there. I was talking to some of our some people who've done startups before. They said, you always got to put yourself out there. So we used to enroll in different competitions. For example, we enrolled in a competition called Data Tribe Challenge. And, there are maybe 4 or 5 cybersecurity seed funds. That's it. There aren't too many cybersecurity focused seed funds. And there are maybe 4 or 5 of them. Data Tribe was one of them. So we applied for the Data Tribe Challenge, and we became one of the finalists. And so we went to this event in Washington, D.C., and one of the founders of CrowdStrike was there. So we ended up not winning that event. We ended up finishing second. But then at that event, the CrowdStrike founder noticed us and said, hey, this is interesting. I'm interested in partnering with you. And they got us access to the App Store. And so, even though we did not win that competition or get funding from that seed fund, we got an amazing outcome. The CrowdStrike guys noticed us. We got on that App Store. And once we were on that App Store, we got 3-4 customers from that App Store, and then different investors started getting interested. The second thing is your own network. We used to do cold reach outs, and they never really worked out. And that's where, the CISO community, wherever you go, is fairly small. Once you get those first 2-3 customers, some customers are advisors in venture funds. And that's how we met our first, a customer actually introduced us to the first seed fund that invested in us. And we had to cultivate them over a period of almost a year. The time between meeting that first seed fund to the time when we actually got the check was about a year. Again, it's a process of building trust. And so, for us, year 1 was all India. Year 2, by the end of year 2 was when we were getting traction. Now we've completed 3 years and a bit. Third year was when, we founded several deals internationally. And so, everything takes time. Cybersecurity sales cycles, especially internationally, I think are fairly long. And a few ways to reduce those are, trials, app stores, marketplaces, partnerships. All of them help, but they help, but they don't, sales cycles are still long. You still have to find a way to get them to POCU and so on. And so, fundraising is a tedious process. Seed check took us a year. And then once they came in, our second round of funding took just 3 months. They knew everybody. They introduced us to 10 different funds. And, Series A, we had multiple term sheets and so on. Getting that first investment, breaking in, that is the process that is actually incredibly difficult. And, getting that first customer, getting that first investor, that's what takes sweat and blood. And even for us, that was challenging. So some of the things we did to engage these investors over the first year was that, we would send monthly newsletters, we would keep them updated, we would show them progress. Hey, we met CrowdStrike. Hey, we closed CrowdStrike. And then, hey, we met MasterCard and we're progressing. We're in a POC and we finally closed it. You need to show them progress that the team can execute, that the team can stick together. And so, that was something that actually worked out really well. Our first large customer was a similar story too. It took us about a year to close our first large customer. So we met them first in Boston, and then they were interested. And then 6 months later, we pinged them again. We did a second demo. They were interested again. And then about 9 months in, They were actually ready to, consider a POC, a pilot, and bake us off against a couple of other vendors. And that went really well. POCs are critical, and that's where, when we did well in the POC, that gave them the confidence to make a bet on us. And that went really well. And once we got a customer, we invested in them, made them a reference. They gave us a couple more. And so those were all, that's the part around break-ins. How do you actually break in? Break into scale is an entirely different topic. So break into scale, to actually get scale, let's say you want to do 15 customers, 20 customers, 30 customers. So you have to find that product market fit. For us, bundles have worked out quite well, being an add-on on top of EDR products, being an add-on on top of web gateways, finding anchor partnerships. That is something, when you can go partner with an Optiv, and when you can partner with a CrowdStrike. Those kind of things can actually get you 10 deals, 15 deals, and that is something that, we've figured out over the last year. And then from tens of deals to hundreds of deals is the next stage, which we haven't yet figured out. Right now, we've got tens of deals, and we know how to grow. And then from growth to turbocharge is the next stage, IPO level companies and so on. That's the part where, you truly need a full scale sales team, and sales teams are expensive today. You need to raise a lot of money. And so, those are things that we are currently thinking about. So that's investments, and then getting that first investment is important. And then the second thing was about getting the first customer is important. The third experience I wanted to share is how do you make a customer a reference customer? That's where investing in a customer success person early on can actually help. And the founding team's got to be involved as well. So, with our first big customer, we were super involved. We built a diagnostic report. We used to even manually do things and keep track month on month. We gave them charts. It's about making the customer look good. Eventually, we actually started seeing a dip in security incidents in their environment, by 20%, 30%, 80%. And they would go report it to their board and management team and say, hey, incidents down 20%, incidents down 40%, incidents down 60%. Last month, they said incidents are down 80%. And so, when you have the right metrics and when you start tracking them continuously and show them progress, those metrics become the customer's metrics. And when it becomes the customer success story, they are actually willing to be a reference for you. And these references are critical. When you're fundraising, when you're doing the next deal, when you're, any sort of help that you need to grow your business, reference customers are worth their weight in gold. And so whatever you're doing, let's say you're pursuing a new investment round or an M&A discussion or an OEM discussion, you always have some assets, and there's a range of assets. Your pitch deck is an asset. Reference customers are an asset. Your team and your chief architect, your SC, they're all different assets. So you got to find the right sequence at which you unveil these assets and use these assets. You don't use all of them up at the same time. So first meeting is you put in. It depends who does the demo. Second meeting, you get somebody else. So you got to show a diverse team. You got to show a depth of talent. You got to show good UX, and you got to show that you got references in the industry, preferably. And so whatever you're doing, whatever you're pursuing, there's a certain sequence in which you play your cards. Now you may not have all of these, so you need to. These are all scarce resources too. It's really about how you manage these scarce resources as you plan your international expansion. That's something that you really got to figure out and manage. How you run that process, how you manage your stars. Because once you use up a reference, no customer is willing to be a reference for more than say twice in 6 months. If you use them up twice, you can't reuse them again. And all of us have only so many references, and so that is something that you've got to think about. Then, something we've recently done for international expansion is inbound, writing blogs and, experimenting with marketplaces and, hiring people to do LinkedIn outreaches on our behalf. And so content-based marketing is another critical factor. And so having a ton of content, having your own proprietary reports, data, getting a report published in, say, the Wall Street Journal, all these publications, they love data. If you got a killer headline from your data, they will pick it up, And so that's the last step. If you can go and get an article in the Wall Street Journal or Wired or Dark Reading, one of these magazines, they can really help, then your brand is out there. If you can get a mention out of Gartner, you got to pay the Gartner tax. Those are things that, that can work out as well. It's probably easier to get newspaper mentions.
So thank you so much, Mr. Sai, for joining us and delivering greatly on different strategies and your views on the strategies for the success in the international market. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's a very late hours for you and still you joined. So thank you so much.
Thank you.